Hello everyone, welcome to the Halloween Spooky Campfire. Now you may be asking, what is this? What is this goddamn shit? You know it's October, it's Halloween. We do spooky stuff. Put it in. And everyone's going to tell either a creepypasta or something spooky that they know.
A spooky tale around the campfire.
Yeah, we're doing spooky tales right now. As you can hear, we have the crickets. We're out at night. Hopefully nothing get us. Especially no slender hue men.
Hopefully no white women come out of the grass.
Oh no, I hope Five Nights at Freddy's doesn't come out and eat me alive.
It's
oh,
fine,
no.
it's fine, Jelly. White women won't come near us. None of us brought dogs to this campfire, right?
Oh.
You're right.
Sure, yeah.
Okay,
sure.
we don't need introducing. We're just going to talk about spooky things. But first, I want to tell you a little funny thing that I came up with some hours ago. There's this urban legend. It's this creature. It's called the Curupi. Okay, I will post it in the show chat right now.
Oh my god,
that's spooky.
Zach.
Oh my gosh.
What did they do
Look
to
at
you,
him.
Zach?
It's Zach.
Zach! Zach! This is what happens when you don't eat, Zach. Don't do it. Quick, have
No.
a sandwich. Eat a burger.
Penis
Whoa.
belt. Penis belt. Penis
okay, let me
belt.
tell you-
Penis
Penis
belt.
Penis belt.
Penis
Penis belt.
belt.
Let me tell you the Wikipedia description. Okay, the
Yeah.
Kurupi is a midget with a vigorous body, representing the phallic myth and sexuality. He's an ugly creature of black color that comes out of the deep of the woods to look for virgin women, abuse them, and finally rape them. So yeah, that's a pretty famous
Why
urban
are his
legend from
feet
Argentina.
backwards? And why didn't he tuck his dick behind his butt
Also,
and then
yeah,
wrap
he
it
has-
around instead of trying
Oh,
to
yeah,
twist
he
it
has
backwards?
a giant dick that he
Yeah, it's wrapping around his waist at least once.
yeah he embraces women with that like a whip. He he brings the women to him.
Like Scorpion and Final Mortal Kombat.
That's gotta be uncomfortable.
And also
on
the description
a
the
ding-a-ling.
description says that when women find them, they just can't help themselves around him. They just get crazy.
Oh,
And
no.
so yeah, that's my pretty.
is that you, Eleazar?
Is it meant
We
to
won't
scare
talk
men
about
mainly?
It's like if you see this man, look away your wife.
Okay, does anyone has anything before we start with the?
Well, let me
Yeah,
get
who's
the
next?
obvious out of the way.
Yeah.
Jews.
Juice.
Nice.
I have a story if
Very
you want to
funny.
hear it.
I want to
Yeah,
hear.
let's start with the
what's the next
creepypasta right
story?
on. Sitsual, your turn.
Yeah, let's go. It's about the dog. My dog Rio. You see, Rio was a birthday gift I bought myself at 24. And as the middle child of 3, birthdays were no longer a celebrated gift-filled event, so much as a wellness check systematically performed by every member of my family and a couple of my closest friends. For the last couple of years, I'd used birthdays as an excuse to get myself a gift that I'd been fawning over all year and that I couldn't regularly justify on my tight budget. This year, I knew it was going to be a dog. I'd been dreaming of adopting a dog for years. I'm not white, guys. It's fine. I'm not white. It's fine.
Okay.
Ooh.
That it's ethical. We know that.
Yes.
Ethnical.
But I'd been denying myself repeatedly and constantly for a rotating list of reasons. The greatest of which was living in a dorm room that didn't allow them. As soon as I searched for my apartment, I carefully selected pet-friendly establishments for consideration. I was still scraping by as far as finances went, but I was making a point to have at least one standard for the cost of rent. The first thing I did was go right to the animal shelter down the street and adopt the cutest, tiniest little puppy I could find. She was a Chihuahua Jack Russell Terrier mix, according to her paperwork. And she was the Antichrist, according to me. Cute as a button, yes, but infuriating. She had endless energy and demanded to be played with, walked and carried around in a never-ending cycle. As a full-time employee, having hours anywhere I could to plow through student loans, I had neither the time nor the energy for her boundless demands and pea-sized bladder. It was smaller than mine. Impossible, I know. Speaking of her bladder, house training did not make the small list of items on her agenda. She was far too busy chewing through every shoe, jacket, and handbag I owned. It was my fault, really. I hadn't thought through what owning a puppy actually entailed until it was too late. I was away from home for far too long at work, so every day I came home to a flood of excrement to clean up. I was too tired to play with a puppy that needed that sort of energy-draining attention. My anxiety mounted as I realized how awful I was at raising a puppy. And after a week and a half, I posted pictures of her cute face on my social media until one of my distant friends volunteered to give her a better home. It didn't take long. She was really adorable. At this point, I was ready to accept that my dreams of owning a dog were long dead. I frequently daydreamed about adopting a retired service dog. She would be professionally trained by someone else who knew what they were doing and allowed to accompany me anywhere I went, so I never had to worry about not having time for her. I let my hopes get up for half a shift at work before spending my lunch break having them crushed by a Google search, which informed me that service dogs do not retire, but rather live out their lives with their owner, to whom they provide the necessary service. I sulked back to work after finishing my lunch and spent the rest of my day lamenting over the pet dog that would never be. Still, I was never the type to give up on something. I was a problem solver, and I was tenacious. You should have seen my resume. And I was going to make this happen. After a bit more digging online, I learned that while you can't adopt a service dog, you can adopt a TSA dog or a police dog. The puppies who failed their tests and were deemed unworthy of the TSA or police force were up for adoption year-round. And from what I could tell, the retired dogs were given away based on the honourable dibs system. They almost always ended up with a police officer or a TSA agent or a member of one of the families. I clicked on the application to adopt a puppy that was not up to snuff, but was immediately shut down by the long list of demands. The application had a wait list of almost 2 years and required 4 pictures of all angles of the applicant's fenced-in backyard, which was necessary to even apply. From my modest 2-bedroom apartment, I couldn't even dream of such a luxury. It was months of calling every nearby police station and airport I could, reaching farther and farther out of my desperate search. Finally, in a small podunk town near the southern border of my state, I found a chance. He was old, and usually just tired. He'd worked for the state for 8 years when the police force expanded in response to a demand that had now fallen, and was up for adoption to the right taker. I insisted that I was the right taker, and I would drive straight there immediately. After a few hours of driving, I found myself the proud owner of a tired old bloodhound. He greeted me rather politely, and slowly strolled towards my car and pulled himself into the back seat when I instructed him to. He was well behaved and seemingly disinterested in most of his surroundings, and he was exactly my speed. I was thrilled with my new dog, and after a few short weeks, felt that we had formed a real bond. He was respectful of my need for peace, quiet, and rest, but he always stayed close to my side. He was dutifully protective and calculating, and I got the feeling that he had trust issues when it came to strangers. Living in the more affordable area of the city, I was very pleased with the extra feeling of safety Rio provided. He was still very kind, and though he never approached strangers on his own, he was always happy to receive pats from anyone when offered, and always returned to his post at my ankles when he was finished making friends. Several months went by with our happy companionship, and I got used to taking long walks every night and when I returned from work. As the weather got colder, I found that our 6 o'clock walks grew darker and darker each night. I didn't mind the dark as it stood on its own, but it's true that it does bring out the shadier characters. I never felt too worried about stranger danger with Rio by my side. He'd never displayed any sort of aggression, but given his urge to stay by my side, I was confident he would not let anything happen to me. It wasn't until just over a year after I got him that I saw Rio in action.
What was it like?
I'll tell you in a minute. I just need a drink. You know.
Commercial break.
Commercial break, have a sip of water. Rather than our spooky nighttime walks, it was a bright, cheerful morning that gave me the greatest fright of my life. It had started like any other morning, and doesn't it always? I was walking with a bit of a skip in my step, energized by the early rise of the sun, when a car pulled up to the curb and slowed to stop just next to me, rolling down their windows as they did so. In the car was a man. He was somewhat ruggedly handsome, if only due to his kind smile and bright eyes. He opened a smiling mouth to speak when Rio seemed to snap. He dove towards the car, and though my firm grip on his leash had always been more of a prop, for the first time he was tugging that leash taut, almost instantly foaming at the mouth with the ferocity of his barks and growls. He snapped at the air aggressively. I'd never seen Rio act anywhere close to this upset, and I was in awe. I'm sorry, sir. I don't know what's gotten into him. I've never seen him like this. I just adopted him, and he's older. So I guess I'm still learning what makes him tick. I quickly apologized to the stranger, yelling over Rio's ruckus. The smile had dropped from the stranger's face, replaced with a look of fear and irritation. But he perked up at my explanation, looking more understanding. Say no more. I've adopted a few pets of my own. They can really be a handful before you let them know who's boss. Anyway, I was just going to ask for directions, but you seem to have your hands full and I don't want to upset this guy any further. The stranger gestured towards Rio jovially before reaching down to replace his hand on the gear stick. I smiled in response to his statement, careful to remain assertive and calm as I observed the necessary details of the situation. Sorry again. I wish I could help. Good luck. I responded apologetically. He nodded politely and pulled back onto the road, driving away with a bit more quickly than necessary. I was careful to keep my smile plastered on as I watched him drive away. I don't have the best memory, and I began chanting details to myself in my head, trying to connect things to memory. Short, dark hair, brown eyes, well-trimmed beard, square jaw, grey 4-door sedan, plate number L3G E77. When I crossed the street casually, heading out of sight as I pulled my cell phone and dialed 911. When the operator answered, immediately asking for my location, I instead responded, regurgitating the chant that I had kept in my head. Short, dark hair, brown eyes, well-trimmed beard, square jaw, grey 4-door sedan, plate number L3G E77. Sorry, my location is 13th Street. At the Brigham cross-section, I need you to get in touch with Deputy Charles Morse. He asked me to report to him. Please have the officer speak to him or someone from his unit before you dispatch them. He's in the Georgetown precinct. I took a deep breath after my short spewing of information, desperate to get everything across. I answered whatever questions the dispatcher had for me, and I briskly walked back to my apartment, Rio in tow. I entered my home, I locked the door, closed the blinds, and unhooked Rio's leash before disconnecting the call with the dispatcher. Rio lay down at my feet, pleased with himself for completing his job, and I sat silently in my fluffy recliner chair. I went over everything I had told the operator to ensure I followed the instructions given to me on the day of Rio's adoption by the Deputy North in event that Rio should ever behave a certain way. There was something in that car that Rio wanted me to know about. Although the dog was retired, Rio would never forget what he was trained for. Rio was a cadaver dog.
He's a what?
Cadaver dog.
What is that?
A dog that
Finds
looks
bodies.
for dead
Cadaver,
bodies.
yeah, dead body. When you were doing the guy's description, I posted the mega chad in the short beard, square jaw.
Eleazar,
It's
this is what you
him.
did the show.
It's him, officer!
Holy shit.
Yeah, that's him, officer.
Interesting.
Yeah. Rio, he's a good dog. Good old bloodhound. He does his job well. And
So you're telling me there was a skeleton in that man's car?
Most likely. Maybe even with meat on it.
It was Zach Death that was in the car.
I mean, he is a good dog. It's too bad that every time I take him out, I will find a body for
Yeah,
sure.
I'm not allowed. I can't take him past like funerals and graveyards. Can't do that. But otherwise, he's a good boy.
Nice. Okay.
What a good
I'm guessing
boy.
it's my turn now.
Yeah, give me something
be.
scary.
Oh, you
Let
want
me tell
something
you-
scary, huh?
Let me tell you about the most amazing weight loss treatment ever. Exclamation
Yeah.
point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Okay. This one is mostly for the ladies.
I'm hype.
Because we're moving to spring, and spring is diet season. Because summer is just a few months down the road. I stumbled on this while I was doing work for my biology course and partly doing research online. And even thought it was pretty rough, it worked like magic for me. A little of a backstory, okay. I was chubby from the time I was in elementary school. Not like massively obese, but I was definitely more than 5 or 10 pounds overweight. Other than that, I wasn't ugly or anything, and I could clean up pretty well when I wanted to. But with that added weight, it was really hard to get a date, and that didn't jive me so well with me. I like partying. I like going out and having fun and being around people. And my body was really just holding me back. And you have to believe me when I say I tried everything. No carb diets, all fruit diets, veganism. I even did some really needlessly dangerous things like chew and spit. I could never bring myself to throw up. Or just flat out starving myself. None of this ever worked anyway. Fast forward. I'm in college, and we're doing a brief unit on parasitism. I know exactly what you're all thinking, okay? Yeah. Okay. I'll admit it. The second I discovered that you could use parasites like tapeworms and stuff as a weight loss aid, I went and started digging. The thing is, turns out that it's not really as dangerous as they make it out to be. I mean, I read so many forums, and it seems like there were only two kinds of complications that people ended up with. Either they overcompensated for what was being taken out and ended up gaining weight in the end, or they left it in too long and made an exit on its own that ended in a trip to the hospital. It took a lot of studying and a lot of really careful planning, but eventually I sort of figured out how you could toe the middle of the line and not screw it up that badly. The trick seemed to be to starve the little sucker out, maximum weight loss. Since you will be burning fat, hopefully, none of the complications. I know how bad this sounds. I really do. Bear with me, okay? It turns out you can't really just buy parasites to infect yourself with on Amazon. That was where I hit my first snag. It took me a couple of weeks. And in the end, I had to put up a Craigslist ad before I got any leads at all. When I finally got a bite, I had to meet the guy in a really skivvy motel downtown to close the deal. I took them right there. It's definitely weird to think that you're intentionally introducing a parasite, like a tapeworm, into your body. Weird and kind of gross at first. But you work past it eventually. It helped that the guy I bought them from was really appreciative and enthusiastic. Kind of a pervert, but I was sort of expecting it, coming from Craigslist. I ended up having to go back to him 2 more times over as many months. Turns out that sometimes your body is able to fight off an infestation like that. After the 3rd time, it finally took. I know, because I had been obsessively taking tests I was admittedly stealing from the biolab. By then, we already finished our units on parasites, so no one ever knew they got missing. So where does this magic weight loss come in? It doesn't come right away. It takes time for your new little friend to latch on in there, enough to start siphoning nutrients. You will get nauseous. There's no avoiding it. At first, mine was bad enough that I started keeping a trash can by my bed so that in the morning I could roll out and empty my stomach right there. It passes through. After a few weeks, you want to start taking vitamins right away. I admit I also got way back on calories during this time, probably more than I should have, because I was paranoid about overdoing it, and I figured as long as I was popping multivitamins, I wouldn't get malnourished so badly that I ended up super sick. And hey, it totally worked. I admit there was a point where I experienced a little bit of hair thinning because I was apparently not taking enough vitamins. This was, I think, about after 2 months. I started adding more protein powder to my diet to offset it a little. I don't know if it helped or not, but I never developed a huge bald spot, so it was okay. Here's the thing about doing it this way. The results do take some time. I promise you it pays off through. It will vary a little, lady to lady, based on the whole huge bunch of things. But if you do it right at some point, the weight will literally just melt off of you. For me, it was about 5 or 6 months. It was a little scary and painful when I realized the parasite had finally died and was on its way out. I skipped class to hole up in the bathroom while it passed. And once the solids were out, the rest of the built-up retained water was gone within another week. When it was all said and done, I had dropped 20 pounds. And after another month or two of a good diet and lots more vitamins, I was feeling well enough to start attending class regularly again. I don't think you want to risk staying infected any longer than I did, is the thing. After that point, the fetus is so developed, it starts to show. And it's a lot bigger, so it's harder to get rid of it when you finally miscarry.
Oh shit! Holy shit! Eek. Oh, God.
Yeah. That's
I was wondering when the shoe was gonna drop.
That's an
Christ.
ending, all right.
Okay, nice. Okay. Kajuro, my boy.
Oh, should I do a bunch of the short ones or do the doors first?
Whatever. I say do the doors first and do all the things
yeah.
at the ending.
Okay. I was adopted. I never knew my real mother. Rather, I knew her at one time, but I left her side when I was too little to be able to remember. I loved my adopted family, though. They were so kind to me. I ate well, I lived in a warm and comfortable house, and I got to stay up pretty late. Let me tell you about my family real fast. First, there's my mother. I've never called her mom or anything like that. I just call her by her first name, Janice. She didn't mind it at all. I called her that for so long, I don't think she even noticed. Anyhow, she was a very kind woman. I think that she's the one who recommended my adoption in the first place. Sometimes I would lay my head against her in front of the television, and she would tickle my back with her nails. She's one of those Hollywood mothers. Second, there's Dad. His real name was Richard, but he never really liked me much, so I began to refer to him as Dad in a desperate attempt to gain his affection. It didn't work. I think that no matter what I called him, he would never love me as much as his own child. That's understandable, so I really didn't press the matter. The most notable attribute of Dad was his unmoving sternness. He was not afraid to pop his children when they did something wrong. I found that out before I could use the restroom properly. He didn't hesitate to spank me. Well, I'm in line, and it's because of his methods. Lastly is my sister. Little Emily was really young when I was adopted, so we were about the same age, but she was slightly older. I like to think of her as my little sister, though. We got along better than any sibling could possibly get along. We would always stay up late together and just talk. Well, she did a lot of the talking. I mostly just listened because I loved her. It was a great setup that we had. We were short on bedrooms, so because I didn't want to sleep in the living room by myself when I was littler, I had a pallet set up for me next to her bed on the floor. This is where I've slept since, But it was cool with me because I enjoyed being with her, and I had always felt pretty protective of my little sister. Everything changed on a horrible Wednesday night. I was at home taking a nap when little Emily opened the front door. The sound of the door opening pulled me to a state of consciousness, and I walked from the door down the hall to the living room. That's when I first remembered it was Wednesday. I was never any good at keeping track of what day it was. Actually, I'll just go ahead and say it. My sense of time was horrible. But nevertheless, I knew it was Wednesday, because Emily had just come home from her church's youth group gathering. She walked in the front door and hugged me, and then was followed in by Dad and Janice. "Do you have a good nap?" Janice said, teasingly as she ruffled my hair. I just shook my head away and snorted in a manner that clearly expressed that I was teasing back with her. "Don't you snort at your mother like that," said my father gruffly with authority. He shut the door behind him and hung up his coat. I was clearly joking, I growled under my breath. He must not have heard me because I didn't feel him smack me. Emily then proceeded to our room and I followed. She started telling me about her day. You know, usual teenage girl stuff. But I listened so that she would feel better. After a summary, she suggested watching TV, and I obliged and jumped onto the couch as she was going for the remote. She rolled her eyes at my little brother-like immaturity and scooted me over and sat down. The TV turned on and we watched it together until the sun went down. Emily was the kind of girl that instead of watching cartoons and soap operas, she would watch Discovery and Animal Planet and National Geographic. I liked those too, so I didn't mind. Actually, those are the only channels that could hold my attention. So it got late and Janice walked up behind the sofa. "Emily, it's past your bedtime. Turn off the television and go to your room." "You too," she pointed at me. Emily turned off the program we were watching grudgingly and stood up. She started down the hallway to our room. As I followed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. We went into our room and Emily turned off the light. Just as she did, I caught a flash of movement out of the corner of my eye. It was out the window. But soon I redirected my line of sight to where the window was no longer in my peripheral vision. What it was that I thought I had saw was gone. I still remained alert, for my sister's sake. I laid there in the darkness, with nothing but the thin ray of light from the street lamp outside to illuminate the room. It wasn't much. Time and time again, I could have sworn that I heard subtle sounds just out the window. A twig break, leaves crunching, clothes jostling. All the while, I could smell a faint stench of sweat and blood. I kept my eyes open most of the night. The sounds outside subsided, and the smell left my nose. I began to feel at ease. My eyelids closed. Not long after that, I heard a very loud crash on the other side of the house. I was up in an instant. "There's someone in the house!" I barked, with extreme adrenaline coursing through me. "Wake up!" I shyly pleaded with Emily. She did, and as soon as I saw her sit up, I ran to my parents' room. Dad was dead. His neck was splayed open and gaping as blood spilled out of it, of the bed and onto the floor. I saw the bathroom's door was closed, and just before it, on the outside, was a man. A man. I don't feel comfortable calling it that. He was very large and rugged. He turned around and saw me, and that's when I saw him accurately for the first time. I won't forget it. His eyes were large and beady, and trapped with lust. He was styling a beard that was badly unkempt, with blood dripping off. His clothes were dirty and his face was cold. Just then I noticed the same horrid smell of sweat and blood from earlier, but this time it was overwhelming. He saw me. He saw me and grinned with a set of crooked yellow teeth. That smile threw me off. I thought that I was going to die. but then he turned back to the bathroom door, completely unperturbed by my presence. I was terrified and didn't know what to do. I just yelled at and cried. I watched as he shouldered through the door. That was Mom's only protection. I watched as he raised the large razor that he was carrying, but had obviously neglected to use properly. I watched as he sliced her open and tore her to shreds. I then heard something, the last thing I wanted to hear. It was Emily's scream coming from behind me. The large monstrosity looked up from my butchered mother and stared at my little sister. I was distraught. He stood up and quickly started walking towards us. My sis turned and ran. I was at a loss when he bypassed me and went straight after her. Why was she still in the house? Had she not asserted the situation and ran? Apparently not, and now she was dead and I was alone. I ran after them both. I expected the man to kill her as he had the rest of my family, but I was sadly mistaken. He grabbed her by the arm and jerked her as a way to make clear that he was in control. He dragged her through the house. I was making all the noise I could now, hoping and praying that someone would come to my aid. He mustn't take her, not her. As he passed me, I backed against the wall and whimpered with terror. Why? He didn't respond except by putting his free hand on my head while Emily screamed in the other and saying, "Good boy." He gave another crooked grin and a very cold, unnatural laugh. I followed him to the door where he dragged my helpless sister after him. He opened it, pulled her out, and slammed it shut behind him. I'm now sitting in the house with my mutilated adopted parents, shivering and whimpering with dismay. He's out there with her, doing who knows what to her. I can't do anything. I would if I could, but I can't. I would chase after them in a heartbeat, but I can't. I sit here, looking at the front door. I look down at my paws. If only I could open the doors.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh no.
Fucking dog.
Poor dog.
Yeah.
It's really fucking depressing.
It is
Yeah.
depressing.
Yeah.
The dog man. That is scary. I'm scared of dog people.
I wish I had a good dog man story to tell. I love the dog man.
I love the
Like
dog
the
man. I have a story.
Oh my gosh,
Good.
no way. Tell me about it.
Well, it all begins on a Minecraft server in a spooky old church. You laugh now, but you're not ready. For inside that church there is a book, an ancient text, with a very, very scary story written inside. And I'm going to read that for you now, as I ascend the steps to the podium, with the book right in front of me. The Tale of the Wyverman. Legend said in olden times, speaketh tales of one sublime, a man whose face is black as night, with sunken cheeks like an undead faggot. The tale says of a propertyless man who screamed in frustration, "I have no things! I wish to have things!" Little did the man know, through his venting, the Wyverman was listening. Deep into the caves the Wyverman went, picking up every things he could find. The Wyverman returned with an abundance of things, and the next day the frustrated man became a gleeful man. "Oh boy!" he shouted. "I'm so grateful to whoever gave me these things." Drunken with that sick hit of dopamine, the Wyverman headed out again to gather more things for the gleeful man. Every things was picked clean from the caves, taken by the Wyverman and to the gleeful man. "Jesus fucking Christ," said the gleeful man, slowly turning into an upset man. "This is too much things. I didn't need this many. Please stop, I beg you," said the upset man, turning into a begging man. "This is more than enough things, so please stop." But the Wyverman did not listen. That sick dopamine was blinding his ears from seeing his words. And so the begging man became a drowned man, drowned in too many things. The end.
That's what happens when you hoard all your things in Minecraft, kids. You gotta share. You gotta
Right.
share. This is why we need
Yeah.
communism in Minecraft. Otherwise, the Witherman he'll get ya. He'll drown ya.
By the way, this all happened in Minecraft server.
Yes, all of these stories.
Okay, so am I next?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. This is a story about a man named Dune Kuhn, otherwise known as Mike Enslin. Mike Enslin was still in the revolving door when he saw shaped shades to desk. Okay, cut this out. No need, this sucks. He should go fucking kill himself.
That's sad.
Oh no. What
Okay, I
happened?
didn't realize this, but this is literally 50 pages.
Wait,
No, keep this in. That's
is it
hilarious.
the Stephen King story?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is this the Stephen? Yeah, no need. Stephen King is not known for his brevity.
No.
Okay. Fucking switch gear. Time to read the anime epic man orgy. Okay, the anime man's epic orgy. Shame I can't come with you. It's Joey to visit Connor right now. The anime man himself with 1 million subscribers. Aki said with a little bit of disappointment in her tone. Connor was a good friend of ours, who we hadn't seen in a long time. I was about to head over to his house to visit Aki. Would be meeting up with us later, but she didn't want to wait. At least you'll be able to see him later, I said, attempting to cheer her up a bit. You're right. Well, I'll see you later. Have fun, she said before skipping off into the sunset. Arriving at Connor's house, I knocked at the door, but Kermit answered instead of Connor. Kermit the Frog, you might ask. He is just a sentient puppet. I knew something was wrong instantly. What did you do to Connor, Mr. Kermit? I asked him, looking into his beautiful, soulful eyes. Shut up, bitch. Get in here and take off your pants. I knew the only way I could save Connor would be to obey. I walked in and went to Connor's room, where he shot all of the cosplaying videos. Damn, Connor, what a nice ass. I lay on the bed, removing my pants. Please be gentle, I said, like blocking off the view of my butt so the camera couldn't see. My cheeks now dusted red. Bitch, shut the fuck up, Kermit responded, said with a deep, glowing voice. I can't believe I'm doing this for Connor. As Kermit began to slide his long green member inside, Kermit burst in, as to save him from my nightmare. Connor, I gasped. He's now in my butt. I blush. Kermit couldn't care less as he entered me. Connor widens his tears. Kermit, with my best friend, he feels betrayed. That was apparent from the face. Now in a bed position. I feel ashamed of my actions. Why had I done this? Why am I reading this? It seems I have to teach you all a lesson. Connor removes his pants too, before getting on the bed and sticking his member in my mouth. Connor, I mumble, muffled by his member touching the back of my throat. The door bursts open again. Gigak, standing there, panting wildly, his eyes looking like Bambi. How could I, Joey, Connor? I thought you were my friends, and Kermit, my mistress. You swore loyalty to be my bitch only. Gigak enraged, he took his whip, his dominatrix heels, and began to whip Kermit back with my bomb. Kermit goes wild in my bomb, shooting his goo. I scream on Connor's pee-pee as Connor shot his shot in the back of my throat. The Gigak whipped me, calling me a dumb whore, as my icky wicky got all stucky in his pussy.
Jesus.
Wow. That was awful.
That was good. That was very scary. I would describe that as
I can't
scary.
believe I stayed up until 5 a.m. to read this.
I am terrified of things that are out there on the internet. The things that you've printed out to bring to this campfire. I hope you're planning on burning them after this.
Very spooky.
Yeah.
Very spooky.
Yes.
Okay, that was interesting.
That's a word. That's
Wow.
a word you can use.
I feel like I need a glass of water after that one.
Well, it made me laugh. I actually liked it. Okay, so it's getting pretty late actually. Like the sky started blue and now
Yeah.
it's pure black. Hope nothing happens. But I have a lot of stories to tell. So, Simon, What do you say? You go next.
I can tell my story. Okay. I can tell my story. This is a story you may have heard around, and if you have, just don't spoil it for anyone else. All right.
Dumbledore
And
dies.
this is true. This is true. This is all true. I knew a guy who this happened, or whatever.
Or whatever, sure.
Or whatever.
That is a line in the book.
Man and girl go out to drive under moonlight. They stop at a side of road. He turns to his girl and say, "Baby, I love you very much." Girl says, "What is it, honey?" "Our car is broken down. I think the engine is broken. I'll walk and get some more fuel." "Okay, I'll stay here and look after our stereo. There have been news report of stereos being stolen." "Good idea. Keeps the doors locked no matter what. I love you, sweetie." So then, guy left to get full for the car. After 2 hours, girl say, "Why is my baby not here? He is supposed to be back by now." Then the girl hears scratching sound and voice saying, "Let me in." The girl does not do it. And then after a while, she goes to sleep. The next morning, she wakes up and finds her boyfriend still not there. She gets out of the car to check. And man, door, hand, hook, car, door! Ta-da! Ba-da-da-da!
Wait, what? Man, door,
Okay, car door! Please, never say that again!
Wait. What?
I don't understand.
Man,
What's the
door,
joke?
hook,
I didn't get the
door,
last
man,
line.
Man, door, hand, hook, car, door.
What? What? That is not an explanation.
Man, door, hand, hook, car, door. It's terrifying. It's the scariest shit I've ever
I'm
heard.
filled with fear! I've never been filled with more fear than I am at this moment!
Oh,
Truly terrifying.
literal chills, Simon. Literal chills.
Yeah, I know, dude.
My fear. Amen.
Number 15. Burger King's foot lettuce.
Yeah.
Burger King foot lettuce.
Yeah, so we're now up 3-3 for scary and meme shitty stories.
No,
Yeah.
those are scary and how
That
mean
sounds pretty
shitty they
based to
are.
me. That sounds a pretty good balance in the world. Okay, first, let me read this before the next one. Posted by Rain. So, you're with your honey, and you're making out when phone rings. You answer, and in the voice is, "What are you doing with my daughter?" You tell your girl, and she say, "My dad is dead." Then who was phone?
Yeah, I can relate.
Yeah, has that happened to you, Jelly?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
Congrats.
Yikes.
Yikes.
Okay.
Ooh, I have a good short one like that.
Yeah?
Oh, wait, let me put the accompanying image for it in the show chat. Maybe we can...
What is this show chat you're talking about? We're all standing around a campfire.
Maybe we'll catch
Oh,
a
my-
glimpse.
Yeah, why don't you,
My bad.
pull out the
Don't worry,
pre-printed
yeah.
image from your pocket?
Yes, that's what I meant. Show chat's
Yeah.
the name of my wallet.
Kajuro means I'm gonna throw another log on the fire.
Ah! Look at that! Ah! Look at him! Look at him! Ah!
Scary. Get it
at
out.
him.
I don't like it.
Look at him.
I like it.
Yo, why's my cousin there?
After, you know,
Where'd you
so
get that picture of me?
So, so you come back from work. After working a hard day, I came home to see my girlfriend cradling our child. I didn't know which was more frightening, seeing my dead girlfriend and stillborn child, or knowing that someone broke into my apartment to place them there.
Waka waka.
Here's
And
another
then I
one.
slapped that dumb bitch and told her to make me a sandwich.
I'm glad.
Waka waka.
I'm glad this has a good ratio of scary and meme.
Oh, I got another
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. This one's This one's about family. About a father and son.
That must be nice.
Oh.
Okay, I begin tucking him into bed, and he tells me, Daddy, check for monsters under my bed. I look underneath for his amusement and see him, another him, under the bed, staring back at me, quivering and whispering, Daddy, there's somebody on my bed.
Oh, what?
Watch out!
What?
Watch out!
Oh my god.
Watch
That's
out!
actually pretty good.
Watch out!
Okay. Okay.
Watch
okay,
out.
Okay.
It's a
go.
monster.
Okay.
And there's
Read it.
somebody on his bed.
Yeah?
Before fucking a bear comes in and eats us all, why don't you tell your story?
Okay. Well, I picked out. I've got a little thing here.
Is it your cock?
Unfolds paper. Wait.
Really, you better fucking do the voices.
Well, it's a green text
By the way,
story,
guys, since
so
it's been so long, here you have some marshmallows to eat. Chew.
Yes, I hear you. I hear you folding and opening your printed out document of the green text
Yeah.
post.
Yeah, I have this in the same folder as the MapQuest printouts that we used to get here, because we still use MapQuest in the year 2000.
Of course.
I'm loving this
Be
comment.
me.
Thank you for
Be
bringing
me,
this.
18. Be me, 18.
And
Named
you seem to be crumpling up the paper for some reason. I don't know why you're
For some
doing
reason.
that.
Because I've committed it to memory now.
He's gonna throw it. He's gonna throw it in the fire. He's gonna throw it in the fire where it belongs.
Okay. Well, I hope you read it before.
Okay. Well, yes. Before it gets too
Okay.
late.
And now you're uncrumpling it. Okay, that's okay. Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Eliezer?
This is really high effort cosplaying, Saimid.
Yes,
No, Rito, please read your paper
okay.
that's all crumpled up now.
Here we go.
Yeah.
So, my parents used to be big outdoor buffs. My father is an ex-champion hobby boat racer, and my mom was an Alabama-raised country girl. So they always went to camp and go sailing and fishing and shit when I was little. I went on a trip with some of their friends when I was about 10, and since they refused to go camping anymore, my dad told me this story sometime I had turned 18. It still makes me wonder, considering the following. My parents moved a lot and only had one set of friends that they really kept in touch with at all times, Danny and Lisa. Danny and Lisa weren't outdoor nuts like my parents were, but they were friends, and it's fun to camp with your friends, right? So, they all planned like a 5-day trip to a lake south of where we lived, with a creek that was on Danny's father's property, so they could camp on the property and fish all they wanted, then go to the lake with ease. They all left, and everything from now on is my father's account. He told me this once, and only once, and got drunk after he told me, which is extremely uncharacteristic of him anymore. The first 2 days were normal, just camping, drinking, sharing stories while fishing and boating and water skiing heaven. It was young adults / parents having fun. The second night, everyone kept hearing weird yelps and barks, like 2 dogs were in a fight. But were both just hurt and yelping the whole time. They figured coyotes and slept through it. The next day, they continued on their adventures. The night, they kept hearing those noises, but they were extremely close to the camp. So my father and Danny went out to see if they could scare them off, while Mom and Lisa stayed behind and scared out of their minds, hiding in the tent, probably reading a Bible or something. Anyway, my dad and Danny went on the look for these fighting coyotes, searching by following the sound. My dad had a shotgun and Danny had a machete. They were hoping to scare the coyotes, or whatever they were, with a gunshot. They got to a clearing and could hear the noise extremely loud, but it seemed to come from multiple directions, as if the sound were distant from each other. Now, my dad is a bit of a cook, swears he saw swears he saw Bigfoot at 14, but This is different. He just told Danny to go back. No questions, no explanation, just, Danny, we need to go back. So they did, but the sounds didn't fade away this time. Danny nervously asked my dad what was going on, but my dad wouldn't tell him. He just kept shushing him. Danny's a bit of a goofball, hence why I always liked my Uncle Danny. So he thought my dad was getting him back for a prank. He kept nudging my dad and trying to get him to say, gotcha, but my dad never untensed. Finally, they got close to the creek. A ways up from the camp, my dad told Danny to run. Fast. Sprint. Then my dad took off. No remorse. Danny apparently followed, but tripped and called for my dad. But my dad, who tears up and sputters a bit at this part, also uncharacteristic of him, refused to go back for him. Even though Danny started calling for help. Danny was yelling that his leg was broken, it hurt, etc., but my dad just kept running. Then, my dad, my mom, and Lisa all say they heard what sounded like a really, really fucking loud cougar growl. Imagine 2 lionesses going at it, amplified by 70 Marshall full stacks. That's how loud they said it was. It made my dad's ears ring. After that, Danny stopped screaming for help. My dad got back to the camp. The ladies asked what the fuck was going on, but my dad said something was out there. My mom, being the practical woman she is, says, well, no shit. What was it? My dad wouldn't answer. Lisa's freaking out, asking where Danny is, but my dad keeps saying he'll be there in a second. A few hours pass by, and the ladies are extremely worried about Danny, while Dad apparently would cringe when they said something. Finally, from the opposite side my dad arrived from, came Danny, walking just fine up to the camp, wordlessly. My dad cocked his rifle, but waved it away as survival readiness, something my mom says she won't forget. But that's what tipped her off, that something was wrong. Danny walked up and nudges his way next to my mother, but after the weird looks and death glare he got from my father, moved closer to Lisa, who had been nagging him for 10 minutes. But he would either grunt yes or no, or would just stare into the fire. My dad finally asked Danny what was happening to his leg, and Danny looked up, confused almost. My dad told him, I thought you said it was broken. Danny looked at him and replied, broken. Then, as if on cue, started yelling, Steve, ow, my leg, I think it's broken. I noped writing that part. I can't imagine it all too fucking well. The ladies grabbed medkits, first aid, and water, and were rationalizing it as him going into shock. But getting his pants off with much difficulty as he refused to help them actually would make it harder for them to remove them. There was no obvious break, no blood, just bruises all up and down his side. Lisa kept asking what happened, but he would grunt and wave her hands off from the bruises. My dad said, he's fine. Let's just sleep. My mom gave him, are you fucking kidding me look, and he gave her the do-it woman look. But that's right, old school and still working as fuck. And so she complied, as he never does that. And they went to their tent. They say they heard Lisa nagging and a one-sided argument with Danny because he would never reply when she would ask him questions, which I just think is genius wife-enraging tactic. And so she finally yelled, she's going to pee. Danny asked if they could come with her since there were animals out there. In not so many words, she said, okay, and they left. My dad woke up about 10ish in the morning and started making breakfast. Danny and Lisa were gone. My mom asked where they were, but my dad wouldn't reply. After a little while, they both came back, rather unceremoniously, without a word. They were holding hands in each other's arms, or arm over the shoulder, or anything like they always were, just kind of awkwardly standing next to each other. They refused food, and Danny would randomly yell out, my leg! And Lisa kept complaining or feeling ill. My mom suggested they go home and call off the trip on account of Danny's leg, who had not been limping at all, to my mom's horrified recollection. And the two nodded. my father just kind of watched. They all agreed. So Danny and Lisa got in my parents' car, not theirs, and just waited. Didn't pack up their tents, food, coolers, bags, anything. My mom came over and asked if they were going to grab their things, and they shook their heads. My dad asked, "Why don't you take your car?" And they both said, "Broken." Just like Danny had last night, in a creepy, practiced way. My dad sighed, packed up the car, and finally drove off. Danny and Lisa stayed quiet. Their whole way, except for the random mumblings to each other, completely indecipherable. My parents took them home and came and got me, and we could all tell that something was wrong. Besides coming back days early, they said Danny got hurt, so they came home. This part, from now on, is me after they got home. I asked if we could go see them, but my dad replied no a little too quickly, and so I thought he was mad at me, and I left to go play PlayStation. I remember because I missed them, and he was mean, so I snuck back upstairs and listened from the stairwell. I overheard my parents and grandparents talking about how something wasn't right. It was like those stories, yada yada yada. I assumed they were talking about something random. Got bored and went to go play more PlayStation. A few weeks later, I asked about my Uncle Danny, and my dad said we're not going to see them anymore. I was mad, and so I demanded to know why. He told me something about his dad being sick, and so I was sad, and then I forgot about it, and life went on. Fast forward about 5 years. I'm at a supermarket where I used to live when all this happened. It was also by where Danny and Lisa lived, only on the other side of the road. Being 10, I was never allowed to go over, but now that I can drive, I decided to go see the old house, check out Danny and Lisa's house. I'm a nostalgic person. And see the only neighborhood. I'm driving slowly, rather creepishly down my old street, when I spot Danny walking down the street. Excited as fuck, I flash him down, pull over, and get out and talk to him. He seemed stiff to me, kind of robotic, I guess you could say, when he hugged me, but it was way too tight, and it felt like if he was trying to smother me. I asked him how he'd been, and he said all right. I asked him where Lisa was, and he said at home, so I asked if I could see her, and he agreed. I walked with him and asked him about all kinds of people and tried to catch up, but he didn't remember or didn't care about 90% of it, which seemed odd because Danny was always my awesome and evolved Uncle Danny. So I asked him a couple of obvious trick questions and he failed miserably, and now I'm a bit nervous. We get to his door and he opens it and the smell of goddamned meat locker pours out. A horrid, incomparable smell just assaults my nostrils. The place is a wreck. Shit is just everywhere. Everything is coated in dust. Shit, like nothing looks clean. Laundry is everywhere. No lights are on. It's a mess. I'm more than a little freaked out, and I asked what happened here, and he grunted. A really weird, almost guttural grunt. So I asked after Lisa, and she yelled from the kitchen, which was just behind the wall facing the room I was in. It wasn't a full wall, with a top knot touching the ceiling, so I could smell and hear something cooking. I walked into the kitchen, expecting to see Lisa making some normal food, and planning on asking Lisa why Danny was acting weird, but what I saw was unforgettable. She's standing in the kitchen, butt-ass naked, covered in blood, cooking some kind of mangled mess, surrounded by thousands of bones. I was just smart enough to notice the pile of motherfucking collars in the corner, though not until after I intentionally remembered this at home, fucking pet collars. I yelled, and Danny lunged at me. I kind of sidestepped away from him clumsily and ran out the door. Danny gave chase, but I got in the car and noped the fuck out as fast as my little blazer could go. I got home, called the police, gave them the address, and went straight to my dad. He punched me in the face and told me he overheard the address. I tried to apologize, and he yelled at me. So I yelled at him for lying to me, so he hit me again, then hugged me and said he was very sorry. I tried to ask him, but he, rather strongly, told me to shut the fuck up and forget about it. The police came to my house and told me they didn't find anyone living there, but that my story matched the description and the place was a fucking nightmare. They told me they suspected the previous owners left a mixture of wild animals and burglar and homeless people that had been living there. My dad, being fucking ridiculous genius he is, asked why the house hadn't been foreclosed or bill payments hadn't been an issue. The cops stammered and said they'd look into it. Apparently Danny's father had still been paying for it all, as per some agreement when they got married. I still haven't seen them since, and my dad only once told me the story beforehand. My meeting up with them was pure coincidence and only made the story worse. A couple of years after that, my dad happened to tell me the story, got drunk, and in his drunken stupor told me that night he knew what would happen. He knew what happened to Danny. He knew what they were. Better him than my dad. And that's the end of that.
Dog
That's
fucker.
unpleasant.
Some skinwalker
Dog eater?
stuff.
They were immigrants.
Oh, Jesus, Jelly. They clearly were not immigrants. They had someone else paying their rent. Only rich families do that.
You know, on the topic of immigrants, I have a burning question.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Sea Tall, what color are you?
Why are you asking me?
You said you're not white.
I'm Maori. I'm brown. I'm native to New Zealand, Polynesian.
Oh, sick! I remember
Yeah,
now. You did tell me that
bitch.
before.
Fucking Pakita. I can't remember anything.
I bet if I asked, you would have $1 for the bus, G.
I would. Just for you.
Hey.
Guys, a little off topic, but I found a picture of Zach Death's dad. Zach Death's dad.
Oh wait. You're pulling out the pre-printed image from your pocket,
Of course.
That's
I
spooky.
found him.
and then you're passing it.
I love
it-
this other green text that Rain posted about the Sprite.
Oh, do you want to read that one later?
I mean, it's pretty quick. It's a pretty quick. If we're waiting, are we waiting on anything?
No.
Wait, what is
No.
it? Oh, okay, we're good.
By the way, guys, I'll make sure to scan all these images so you can see it later.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so before the last story of Jelly, Rido, what do you want to tell?
Okay, this one's really quick. Okay. Go to grocery store, buy some Sprite, pour a glass of the stuff. Suddenly have to pee. Go to the bathroom. I pee. Remember, I left Sprite on the counter. Should put it back. It's Orange Crush. Never bought Orange Crush before. In the glass is still Sprite. Receipt says I purchased Sprite. Eventually get over my confusion. Go to work tomorrow. Strange new file on my flash drive. What? Check it out. It's a video. File name sprite.avi. Confusion levels now through the roof. Play it. It's my kitchen. Some guy walks into my kitchen, now horrified. He picks up the entire 2-liter bottle and guzzles it all down in a gulp. He looks guilty. He pulls a 2-liter bottle of Orange Crush out of his pocket and puts it on the table in its place. Walks out. Calls cops. Show them the video. They never find anything about it, are equally as confused. Eventually, I also get over that, although I lock my windows. Wake up one morning. Note on table. Sorry about giving you an inferior drink. Give cops note. Don't find anything on that either. Still really paranoid that this happened years ago. Also, fuck him. Orange Crush is gross.
Orange Crush is gross.
This podcast is brought to you by Sprite.
Imagine mixing Coke and orange.
Yeah.
By the way, we're not sponsored.
Ima-
I have to legally say that we are
Yeah.
sponsored by.
We
I
are.
can legally say
.com.
we are sponsored. I'm legally saying it.
I mean,
We
you're
are
legally
drinking.
sponsored.
Elisa,
Legally
don't
saying
you
we are
know?
Sponsored.
Don't you know we're sponsored by the greatest drink ever, Mountain Dew Ice, cold and refreshing.
Oh, you're right. Conflict of interest. Eleazar, edit me out.
I'll edit you out of existence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As
you have
it
that
should.
power.
Okay. Luckily, the time is good. The fire's kind of dying. Jelly, do you have your last story? The last story?
Oh yeah, I've got a
The
really
Last of
easy
Us?
for you.
The Last
Two?
of Us
Yeah.
2.
Part
I'm
2?
gonna recount the entire story of Last of Us 2.
Oh no!
How horrific.
Nothing is
But
filled with
every
more
detail.
dread and fear.
I push forward the button. I press X. Ellie jumps.
Guys, if Abby was black, would Ellie call her the N-word?
Yes.
She totally would.
I'm glad you think so.
Okay. Jelly?
Alright. Have you ever had an experience that suggested someone else was in your house and just thought, I don't want to know, and left it? Sometimes fear of the unknown seems like the preferable option than facing a real concrete danger. Normally it's nothing, though. One time the beeper function of my wireless house phone went off when I was the only one home. It could only be called from the living room. Another time, I swear someone took change from my desk. They're all probably just slightly disconcerting tricks of the memory. But what would you do when something truly suggestive happens? Would you run? Or just ignore it like I did? Last Monday was a normal day. I got up, brushed my teeth, changed into school clothes, all little parts of my morning ritual. It all seemed like it would be another totally unnoteworthy day, until I saw the strings. There were 3 or 4 thick twined strings in my room. They crisscrossed between the walls around my bed, one attached to the door. No way I would have missed them before. I should have tripped over them. They were tied to pins in the walls, which had also not existed before 10 seconds ago. Nobody could have been in my room while I was in it, let alone set this up. It was early, and my brain wasn't processing correctly. I simply discredited the site, untied the strings, and left for school, leaving them balled up on my desk. It didn't get any better later. Outside my house there were hundreds of them, tied between houses, around cars, streets. This had to be some super elaborate prank, one of those hidden camera shows, or a comedy improv blog. They'd gotten everyone else to play along, too. Passerbys were tangled in them, tying them to objects they were walking towards and away from, as if they had been and were continuing to follow the course laid out for them. I nervously continued my journey to school. On the bus, everyone except me was tied to the door. At school, groups of friends were tied to each other. Teachers were tied to the desks and boards. Oddly enough, at this point, all I could wonder was why I had been left out. When my friend Lucy sat beside me in first period, she simply plopped her bag on my lap and rested her chin on her hand, looking right past me to the window outside. "Hey, Lucy." No response. "Come on. Didn't expect you to be on this too." She sighed and started taking books from her bag. All the books were tied to her hands. I grinned and yanked one of the strings off a book. She didn't seem to notice. Instead, simply disregarded the book completely, letting it drop to the floor without a moment's hesitation. I leaned down, picking up her book and placing it back on her desk. She took no notice. "Well, if that's how you're gonna play it," I smiled, trying to look playful but really just trying to hide my nervousness. I bundled all the strings attached to her together with one hand and then pulled them all free. She blinked, turning to stare at me. "Holy crap, Martin. You're like a ninja or something." I've been sitting here for maybe 10 minutes. I smiled again, relieved my friend had finally noticed me. "Where did all these strings come from?" she gasped, seemingly noticing for the first time. "I assumed you were all fucking with me." She stood up, backing into a corner. No one else in the class noticed. "They weren't here a minute ago. Do you see them too?" Her tone made it clear she was genuinely scared. "No, didn't you?" I was interrupted by my teacher slamming the door behind her. Everyone except me and Lucy murmured a good morning, and still, no one seemed to pay either of us any notice. People have been ignoring me all day, I said to Lucy, before turning to our teacher. Hey! Dumb bitch! You can't teach for shit! No reaction. I'm getting away from all this shit. Lucy pulled a few strings aside and left the class. I followed. And surprise, surprise, no one else noticed. We wandered the corridors, leaving and entering classes as we saw fit. Whenever we untied a chair or book from someone else, it was like it suddenly didn't matter to them. It didn't exist. I showed her the street outside. There were more strings than when I came in this morning. Twice as many. We carefully picked our way through the tangle, making our way to a nearby coffee shop. Not particularly grand, I know, but what would you do in our situation? As I said, fear of the unknown sometimes seems like the safer option. On a few occasions, I suggested we untie a few more people. Lucy was opposed to it, remembering how terrified she'd been. In the coffee shop, we grabbed a couple of sandwiches and drinks from the fridge. We found a table, untied all strings attached to the chairs, and sat down. We both ate in silence. Both of us too scared. Both of us distracting ourselves by watching the strangers in the shop, oblivious to the strings. After 20 minutes, Lucy spoke up. Now she's going to take the sandwich, she said, pointing at a woman across the shop. Sure enough, she walked to the fridge, took the plastic wrap sandwich she was tied to. She pays for it and leaves, she said, according to the prophecies of the strings. That guy doesn't tend to pay. I watched as a man took his coffee and ran out of the store, the two servers looking too exasperated to go after him. This is horrible, she whimpered. Let's go, please. Outside wasn't much better. Everyone just followed the string's instructions, going about their daily lives. Lucy announced she was going home to sleep this off, and I agreed to walk her home. She only lived 10 minutes away. Away from the busier part of town, there were fewer strings. It was nicer. We could pretend it wasn't happening. When we turned onto Lucy's street, she stopped, her mouth falling open. What now? I broke the silence, my voice sounding surprisingly small. Look. She pointed outside to one of her neighbor's houses. I saw it clearly, and I'll take my memory of that moment to the day I die. A little dark imp, maybe 3 feet tall, walking along with its knuckles on the ground, almost like a monkey. It had 2 bulbous yellow eyes taking up about half its face, and no mouth or any other facial features. It was holding a hammer and a ball of twine, which it was letting out behind it. It walked quickly and quietly from front door of the house to the mailbox. It stopped, hammered a nail into the side of the box, and tied a string around it. It turned to face us, and stopped when it spotted us. My bottom fell out even further than it had already been. But it just started with a look of surprise and curiosity. You could almost say it was more frightened. Suddenly, it beckoned to us with its tiny hand. I looked at Lucy. She hadn't moved. I looked back at the imp, which stared at me. I halved the distance between us, and then halved it again. This wasn't fear of the unknown anymore. It was fear of this little guy. It didn't seem like anything to be scared of. When I was a meter away from it, it extended its hand. Hi. I shook it. It nodded in approval, blinking its massive yellow eyes at me. So, you're the one in charge of the strings. It nodded eagerly. I called Lucy over, but she stayed where she was. There are more of you? Another nod. I wanted to ask it so many questions about what it was and where it came from, but it seemed for now I was stuck with only yes or no questions. Do we even have free will? It just looked at me, almost sadly. I immediately felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't bear looking at the little monster anymore. I grabbed Lucy, who'd been listening to our exchange and now sat on the curb with her head in her hands. Come on. We entered her house, and I made her a cup of tea. When I found her in the living room, she had untied her dog and was curled up with it, crying. I set the tea down and sat beside her. "I'm so scared," she whispered after a good 10 minutes of sobbing. I didn't answer. I couldn't. "I'm going to sleep," she mumbled suddenly, and was under within the minute. Sleep was starting to sound pretty good all of a sudden. My eyelids suddenly felt like they were being weighted down. I collapsed to the rug, and the last thing I heard before I fell asleep was the scurrying of several sets of feet nearby. I felt much better the next day, as if the whole affair had been a dream. I'd probably have believed that if I hadn't been awoken by Lucy's mother that morning, wondering what I was doing sleeping over without permission or something. Over breakfast, Lucy asked me why I looked so pale and nervous. I turned to her and smiled, mumbling something to her about feeling sick. But the truth was, I was scared. Scared because I couldn't see any strings, and wondering whether my actions were truly my own.
Whose toes are those?
Whose toes are those?
I cannot find my toes.
Those are pretty.
I lost them in the war.
Okay, I'm full of marshmallows. The fire is dying down.
Yeah. Everybody's
I think I'm-
thoroughly spooked.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing actually snakes. So we better get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the forest snakes that are coming.
Oh my god, I'm hearing the snakes
Are you sure
closer.
it's not them snakes?
Oh no.
Maybe. So yeah, we better go home. Wait. What's that? Wait, is that a clown? Oh my god. No! No!
So many balloon animals! Oh god, it's a Jewish clown!
Okay. This should be the last line.
Well, the scream that came afterwards has to be the last one.
Yeah, it was actually James. I'm sorry.
That was pretty good.